The unexpected challenger. Kira Vex stood at the edge of the sacred combat arena, her crest of emerald spines rippling with anticipation. The three moons of Xantar cast an eerie glow across the crystalline surface of the fighting grounds, refracting light in patterns that seemed to predict the flow of the upcoming battle. As first warrior of the Xantari High Council, she had earned her 24 victory marks through skill, cunning, and an unrelenting dedication to her people's ancient ways. "Is the ceremonial armor too tight, First Warrior?" asked Lax, her second in command, as he made final adjustments to the gleaming plates that protected her vital organs. Kira flexed her powerful limbs, feeling the familiar weight of the armor settle against her iridescent scales. "It serves its purpose," she replied, her voice a low rumble. "Though I doubt I'll need much protection today. Warrior Thrax is young and untested." Lax's face membranes fluttered in what passed for a smile among the Xantari. "Overconfidence has been the downfall of many great warriors, First Warrior." "Caution is not overconfidence," Kira corrected, picking up her ceremonial spear. The weapon was a masterpiece of Xantari craftsmanship, its shaft carved from the heartwood of the ancient kal trees that grew only in the sacred groves of their homeworld. The blade was forged from stellarite, a metal found only in the asteroid fields surrounding their system, capable of cutting through almost any known material in the galaxy. "Today's victory will cement your position as the next sovereign emissary," Lax said, stepping back to admire his work. "The first female to hold the position in 7 generations." Kira's eyes narrowed. "Gender has nothing to do with it. I am simply the best." The ceremonial horns sounded across the arena, their deep bass notes resonating through the gathered crowd of thousands. The Xantari people had assembled from all corners of their world to witness this sacred combat, a tradition dating back millennia. The winner would represent their species in all diplomatic matters for the next cycle, a position of immense honor and responsibility. "The Council has received word that the human delegation has entered our atmosphere," Lax mentioned casually, though his rigid posture betrayed his anxiety. Kira's spines stiffened. "Humans? Here, today?" "The Council thought it would be instructive for them to witness our ways," Lax explained. "Their arrival has been expected for some time, but the timing is unfortunate." "Or perfect," Kira mused. "Let them see the strength of Xantar firsthand." The horns sounded again, and Kira stepped forward, her powerful legs carrying her into the arena. The crowd erupted in rhythmic chanting, the traditional encouragement for a warrior of her stature. Across the arena, her opponent, Thrax, entered from the opposite side. He was large for a male Xantari, his scales a deep crimson that marked him as a member of the southern clans. High Counselor Drax, the eldest of their kind, stepped onto the elevated platform that overlooked the arena. His voice, amplified by the natural acoustics of the space, rang out clearly. "Today, we witness the sacred combat that will determine our next sovereign emissary. First Warrior Kira Vex, with 24 victory marks, faces Warrior Thrax of the Southern Clans, with 9 victory marks. May the ancient traditions guide your spears and honor be found in combat." Kira raised her spear in salute, as did Thrax. The crowd fell silent, the tension palpable in the air. "Begin," Drax commanded. Thrax moved first, as Kira had anticipated. Young warriors always did, eager to prove themselves. He circled to her right, spear held in a defensive position. Kira remained still, her eyes tracking his movements, waiting for the telltale signs that would reveal his strategy. There, a slight tensing of his upper limbs, a shifting of weight to his back leg. He was preparing to lunge. Kira shifted her stance minutely, ready to counter. The attack came swiftly, Thrax moving with impressive speed for his size. His spear thrust forward, aiming for the gap between her chest plates. Kira sidestepped, bringing her own spear down in a controlled arc that forced Thrax to abort his attack and roll away. The crowd roared its approval. First blood had not been drawn, but the display of skill was impressive nonetheless. They circled each other again, more cautious now. Kira decided to test his reflexes with a feint to his left, followed by a quick jab to his right. Thrax parried the jab but was forced back several steps. Kira pressed her advantage, her spear a blur of motion as she drove Thrax toward the edge of the arena. A sudden commotion from the diplomatic viewing box caught her attention, just for a fraction of a second, but it was enough. Thrax seized the opportunity, lunging forward with unexpected ferocity. His spear grazed Kira's arm, drawing a thin line of silvery blood. Kira hissed in surprise and anger, more at herself than at her opponent. First blood had been drawn, and not by her. The crowd murmured in shock. It had been years since anyone had managed to wound First Warrior Vex in combat. She refocused, pushing all distractions from her mind. Thrax was better than she had given him credit for, but he was still no match for her experience. She changed tactics, moving into a more aggressive stance that their ancestors had used when hunting the great predators of Xander's ancient jungles. Thrax recognized the stance, and his confidence visibly wavered. This was the moment Kira had been waiting for. With a series of lightning-fast strikes, she drove him back, each blow coming closer to finding a vulnerable spot in his armor. Thrax defended desperately, but it was clear to all watching that the tide had turned. In the diplomatic viewing box, Commander Ethan Hayes of the United Earth Alliance watched the combat with fascination. He had arrived on Xander just minutes before, led directly from his ship to this viewing area by a flustered Xantari official who had explained that they were witnessing a sacred tradition. Impressive, he murmured to Dr. Amara Singh, the xenobiologist who had accompanied him on this diplomatic mission. Their combat style is unlike anything I've seen before. It's highly ritualized, Amara replied, her eyes never leaving the two combatants. Notice how they never strike at certain areas. I believe those are culturally significant zones that are considered dishonorable to target. The Xantari escort, who had introduced himself as Junior Counselor Zex, nodded approvingly. Your observation is correct, Dr. Singh. The combat follows strict rules that have remained unchanged for thousands of years. And the purpose of this combat? Ethan asked, watching as the female warrior, Kira Vex, he remembered, executed a particularly impressive maneuver that sent her opponent stumbling. The victor will become our sovereign emissary, representing Xantar in all diplomatic matters, Zex explained, including negotiations with your United Earth Alliance. Ethan raised an eyebrow. So our future diplomatic relations depend on the outcome of ritual combat. Interesting approach. Zex's face membranes fluttered in what Ethan was beginning to recognize as the Xantari equivalent of a smile. We believe that those who can defend themselves are best suited to speak for others. First Warrior Vex has proven herself 24 times in combat. She is formidable. As if to emphasize the point, Kira executed a brilliant feint that left Thrax off balance. With a precise strike, she knocked his spear from his grasp, sending it clattering across the arena floor. The crowd roared its approval. Thrax stood defenseless, his posture shifting to one of submission. Kira raised her spear, pointing it at his throat but not striking. The message was clear. She could end him, but chose not to. High Counselor Drax's voice boomed across the arena. Victory to First Warrior Kira Vex. Her 25th victory mark is earned. The crowd erupted in thunderous approval. Kira lowered her spear and extended her hand to Thrax in the traditional gesture of respect for a worthy opponent. He accepted it, bowing his head slightly. Ethan found himself applauding along with the Xantari, genuinely impressed by the display of skill and honor he had witnessed. However, as he clapped, he knocked over a small crystalline vessel that had been placed on the railing of the viewing box. It shattered on the arena floor below, the sound somehow cutting through the celebratory noise. Silence fell immediately. Every Xantari eye turned toward the diplomatic box, followed by gasps and murmurs that spread through the crowd like wildfire. Commander Hayes, Zex whispered, his voice tight with shock. Do you realize what you've done? Ethan looked from the shattered remains of the vessel to the suddenly tense Xantari around him. I'd apologize for the accident. I'll certainly compensate for any damage. That was the challenge vessel, Zex interrupted, his voice strained. By breaking it in the presence of a victorious warrior, you have issued a formal challenge by the ancient laws of Xantar. Ethan's diplomatic training kicked in, keeping his expression neutral despite his internal alarm. Surely there's a way to explain that this was an accident, not a challenge. Zex's membranes flattened against his face in distress. The ancient laws make no distinction. The challenge has been issued. First Warrior Vex must accept or reject it before all assembled. Down in the arena, Kira Vex stared up at the diplomatic box, her victory celebration cut short. Her eyes locked with Ethan's, and even across the distance, he could feel the intensity of her gaze. What happens if she accepts? Ethan asked, already suspecting the answer. Then you must face her in sacred combat, Zex replied. As is our way. Ethan's mind raced through diplomatic protocols and first contact procedures. Nothing in his training had prepared him for trial by combat on an alien world. And if I refuse? It would be seen as a grave insult to our traditions and to First Warrior Vex personally, Zex said grimly. The diplomatic mission would likely fail before it began. In the arena, Kira's voice rang out, clear and commanding. I accept the challenge of the human diplomat. Let him come forward and face me, as our traditions demand. The crowd murmured in surprise and anticipation. Never before had an off-worlder participated in their sacred combat. Is there any compromise possible? Ethan asked desperately. Any alternative solution? Zex hesitated, then offered. For off-worlders, there is a simplified form of challenge. One throw of the spear each. The one who comes closest to striking their opponent's vital center wins. It wasn't much, but it was something. Ethan nodded grimly. I accept those terms. Minutes later, Ethan found himself standing in the arena, facing Kira Vex across 20 meters of crystalline floor. The spear in his hands felt alien and unwieldy, though he had some training in various weapons as part of his military background before joining the diplomatic corps. Kira regarded him with what seemed like a mixture of curiosity and disdain. You hold the spear incorrectly, human, she called out, her translator rendering her words in slightly accented English. I'm open to suggestions, Ethan replied, adjusting his grip. It is not my duty to teach my opponent, Kira said, her spines rippling in what he assumed was amusement. But since you are ignorant of our ways, I will show mercy. Like this. She demonstrated a grip that did indeed feel more balanced when Ethan mimicked it. High Counselor Drax addressed the crowd. The challenge will proceed under the simplified rules for off-worlders. One throw each. May honor guide your spears. Kira nodded to Ethan. As the challenged, you throw first. Ethan took a deep breath, mentally calculating trajectory and force. His military training had included throwing weapons, though never anything quite like this Xantari spear. He balanced it carefully, aimed, and threw with all of his strength. The spear flew true, heading directly for Kira's chest. At the last possible moment, she shifted slightly, allowing the spear to pass harmlessly by her shoulder. The crowd murmured. It had been a good throw for an off-worlder, but not good enough. An admirable attempt, Kira acknowledged. Now watch how it's done. She raised her spear, her posture perfect. With a fluid motion that seemed almost too fast to follow, she launched her weapon. The spear flew straight and true, directly at Ethan's heart. Time seemed to slow. Ethan's military reflexes kicked in, his body moving on instinct rather than conscious thought. His hand shot up, and against all probability, he caught the spear just inches from his chest. The arena fell completely silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Ethan stood frozen, the spear clutched in his hand, its tip hovering just before his sternum. Kira's expression had transformed from confidence to utter shock, her spines fully extended in what was clearly a display of extreme surprise. High Counselor Drax broke the silence, his voice trembling slightly. The human has caught the spear of First Warrior Kira Vex. By our most ancient law, they are now bound. Bound. Ethan asked, still holding the spear, afraid to move. Zex rushed into the arena, his movements jerky with agitation. Commander Hayes, when a warrior's spear is caught in sacred combat, it creates a bond that cannot be broken. By our oldest laws, you and First Warrior Vex are now joined. Joined? Ethan repeated, looking from Zex to Kira, who remained motionless across the arena. In your terms, Zex said carefully, you would say, married. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by Ethan's whispered, well, this complicates the diplomatic mission. Bound by ancient law. This is unacceptable. Kira's voice echoed through the council chamber, her spines fully extended in a display of agitation that made several junior counselors step back. I cannot be bound to this. This human. Ethan stood quietly at the opposite side of the circular chamber, maintaining a diplomatic posture despite the tension radiating through the room. The events in the arena had transpired less than an hour ago, and now they found themselves in an emergency session of the Xantari High Council. High Counselor Drax raised his hands, calling for order. First Warrior Vex, your feelings are noted, but the ancient laws are clear. When a warrior's spear is caught in sacred combat, a bond is formed that cannot be broken. There must be exceptions, Kira insisted. He is not even Xantari. How can our laws apply to a species we've just encountered? The laws apply to all who participate in sacred combat. Elder Counselor Thora interjected, her voice gravelly with age. Throughout our history, there have been rare instances of off-worlders participating in our rituals. The precedent is clear. Ethan cleared his throat, drawing all eyes to him. If I may, Honorable Council, I believe there's a misunderstanding. On Earth, we don't form lifelong bonds through combat. I was simply trying to avoid being impaled. A murmur of amusement rippled through the chamber, quickly silenced by Kira's glare. Your customs are irrelevant here, human, she said coldly. This is Xantar, and our laws have guided us for millennia. Ethan nodded respectfully. I understand, First Warrior Vex, and I mean no disrespect to your traditions, but surely there must be some accommodation for cultural differences in your diplomatic protocols. High Counselor Drax stroked his facial ridges thoughtfully. Commander Hayes raises a valid point. This situation is unprecedented in recent history. Perhaps. No, Elder Thora interrupted firmly. The law is absolute. The bond has been formed. To deny it would undermine the very foundation of our society. Kira paced the chamber, her powerful tail swishing in agitation. So I am to be bound to this human for life because of an accident. This is absurd. Not for life, Counselor Zex offered hesitantly. The bond exists until the next great conclave, which occurs in one full cycle of the third moon. Ethan calculated quickly. That's approximately 6 Earth months. Correct, Zex confirmed. Until then, you and First Warrior Vex are bound by our laws. You must honor the bond, or both the diplomatic mission, and Kira's position as sovereign emissary will be forfeit. Kira stopped pacing and faced the council. So I must choose between my duty to Xantar and my personal freedom. As must we all at times, Drax said gently. The needs of our people come first. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Ethan watched Kira carefully, noting the conflict playing across her features. Her sense of duty was clearly warring with her personal feelings. Finally, she straightened, her spine settling flat against her back in a gesture of resignation. Very well. I will honor the bond, as our laws require, but let it be known that I do so solely for the good of Xantar. Ethan stepped forward. I also accept this arrangement, with the understanding that it's temporary and solely for diplomatic purposes. Drax nodded, visibly relieved. Then it is settled. Commander Hayes, you will be assigned quarters in the diplomatic wing of the First Warrior's residence, as is traditional for bonded pairs. We will cohabitate, Ethan asked, carefully keeping his expression neutral. Separate chambers, connected by a common area, Zex clarified quickly. The bond requires proximity, not intimacy. Unless desired, someone muttered from the back of the chamber, triggering a wave of quickly suppressed laughter. Kira's spines flared again. "It is not desired," she said firmly. "Now, if we are finished here, I have diplomatic duties to attend to, assuming I am still to be sovereign emissary." "You are," Drax confirmed. "The Council recognizes that the challenge was unintentional and your victory in the sacred combat was absolute. You will lead the negotiations with the United Earth Alliance, with Commander Hayes as your consort." Ethan winced at the term, but nodded acceptance. As diplomatic missions went, this was certainly turning out to be more complicated than anticipated, but he had been trained to adapt to unexpected situations. This was just another challenge to overcome. The council adjourned, and Kira stalked out without a backward glance at Ethan. Zex approached him with an apologetic expression. "Commander Hayes, I will escort you to your new quarters, and perhaps explain some of the expectations of your position." "I'd appreciate that," Ethan replied, falling into step beside the Xantari. "I seem to have married into a complex family." Zex's face membranes fluttered in what Ethan was beginning to recognize as amusement. "Indeed. Though I should warn you, First Warrior Vex is not known for her patience with those who fail to meet her standards." "I gathered that," Ethan said dryly. "What exactly does this bond entail, beyond shared living space?" "You will be expected to attend diplomatic functions together, participate in certain rituals, and present a united front to both our people and yours," Zex explained. "The bond is as much political as it is personal." "And the personal aspect?" Zex hesitated. "That is for you and First Warrior Vex to determine. The laws stipulate proximity and cooperation, but the nature of your relationship beyond that is your own affair." They reached a sprawling complex of buildings nestled against a cliff face, the architecture a blend of natural rock formations and carefully crafted structures. Crystalline spires caught the light of the setting sun, sending rainbows dancing across the courtyard. "These are First Warrior Vex's quarters," Zex said, gesturing to the entrance. "Yours are through the main hall and to the right. First Warrior Vex's private chambers are to the left. The central area is shared space." Ethan nodded, taking in the alien yet somehow familiar layout. "Thank you, Counselor Zex. I appreciate your guidance in this unusual situation. You handled yourself well today, Commander Hayes," Zex said, his tone serious. "Many would have reacted with anger or fear. Your diplomatic skills may yet turn this accident into an opportunity for both our peoples." After Zex departed, Ethan explored his new quarters, finding them comfortable if slightly adjusted for Xantari physiology. The bed was longer than a human standard, the ceiling higher, and the temperature warmer than he preferred, but it was manageable. He had just finished unpacking his few belongings when a chime sounded at the door. He opened it to find Kira standing there, her posture rigid. "We need to establish boundaries," she said without preamble. "Hello to you too," Ethan replied, stepping aside to let her enter. "Please, come in." Kira entered, her eyes scanning the room quickly. "You've made yourself at home." "Attempting to," Ethan said, gesturing for her to sit in one of the large chairs. "Would you like something to drink? I brought some earth beverages that might interest you." "This isn't a social call," Kira said, remaining standing. "I'm here to ensure you understand your role in this arrangement." Ethan sat down, deliberately relaxed. "I'm listening. You will accompany me to diplomatic functions. You will observe our customs and not interfere with my duties as sovereign emissary. You will not embarrass me or Xantar with inappropriate behavior." Defined as. Kira's spines rippled in irritation. "Physical contact in public. Contradicting me before the council. Disrespecting our traditions." "Fair enough," Ethan conceded. "And in return." "In return," Kira repeated as if the concept hadn't occurred to her. "Yes, in return," Ethan said firmly. "This is a diplomatic arrangement, not a subordination. I expect mutual respect and consideration." Kira stared at him for a long moment, then, to his surprise, she sat down. "What are your terms?" "I expect to be treated as an equal partner in this arrangement. I will respect your customs, but I expect you to respect mine as well. I will not be ordered around or treated as inferior because I'm human." Kira's expression remained unreadable, but Ethan thought he detected a flicker of something like respect in her eyes. "Acceptable," she said finally. "But understand this, human. This bond is a burden to me, a complication I neither wanted nor deserved. Do not expect warmth or friendship." "I don't expect friendship," Ethan replied honestly. "But I do expect professionalism. We're both representatives of our people. Their interests should come before our personal feelings." Kira nodded slowly. "On that, at least, we agree." She stood to leave, then paused. "The first diplomatic reception is tomorrow evening. Be ready by the setting of the second moon. Wear your formal attire." "I'll be ready," Ethan assured her. After she left, Ethan sent a secure message to his superiors, explaining the situation as diplomatically as possible. He received a response almost immediately. "Maintain the arrangement. Potential for unprecedented access to Xantari culture. Consider it an opportunity, not a complication." Easier said than done, Ethan thought, but he was nothing if not adaptable. The next evening, Ethan stood in the shared central area, dressed in his formal diplomatic uniform. The door to Kira's chambers opened, and she emerged dressed in ceremonial armor that was more elaborate than what she had worn in combat. Intricate patterns were etched into the metallic plates, and a cape of shimmering material cascaded from her shoulders. "You clean up well," Ethan commented. "That armor is impressive." "It's ceremonial," Kira replied, her tone slightly less frosty than before. "Impractical for actual combat, but tradition demands it." "We humans have similar traditions," Ethan said, gesturing to his own uniform, with its purely decorative epaulets and braid. "Form over function." Kira's mouth twisted in what might have been a smile. "Perhaps our species have more in common than I thought." The reception was held in the Grand Hall of Unity, a vast space with a transparent ceiling that revealed the night sky above. Representatives from various Xantari clans mingled with the small human delegation that had accompanied Ethan to Xantar. Dr. Amara Singh approached them, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Commander Hayes, First Warrior Vex, may I offer my congratulations on your bond?" Kira's spines rippled slightly, but she inclined her head. "Thank you, Dr. Singh." Though the circumstances were unusual. "Fascinating cultural intersection," Amara said enthusiastically. "The concept of bonds formed through combat has parallels in several Earth cultures throughout history. The Spartans, for example." "Dr. Singh," Ethan interrupted gently, "perhaps we could discuss comparative anthropology another time." Amara blinked, then nodded. "Of course. Forgive my academic enthusiasm." Throughout the evening, Ethan observed Kira as she moved through the crowd. Despite her earlier hostility, she was a skillful diplomat, navigating complex clan politics with ease. He found himself admiring her adaptability and intelligence. As the night progressed, Ethan noticed a group of Xantari warriors watching them with unconcealed hostility. He mentioned it to Kira during a brief moment alone. "Those are Thrax's clan members," she explained quietly. "They're not pleased with the outcome of the sacred combat. Will they cause trouble?" Kira's expression hardened. "Not if they value their positions, but it would be wise to watch your back, human. Not everyone accepts this arrangement." Before Ethan could respond, an alarm sounded, high and urgent. The crowd fell silent, then erupted into concerned murmurs. "What's happening?" Ethan asked, but Kira was already striding toward High Counselor Drax, who had just entered the hall looking grave. "Counselor, what's the situation?" Kira demanded. "Proxima Raiders," Drax replied grimly. "3 ships have entered our system. They've already disabled our outer defense satellites." Ethan joined them, his diplomatic training giving way to his military background. "Proxima Raiders. Who are they?" "Pirates." Kira explained tersely. They target developing interstellar relationships, exploiting the transition period when security protocols are still being established. They may have been monitoring our communications, Drax added. They would know of the United Earth Alliance delegation's arrival. Kira's spines flattened in a gesture Ethan now recognized as determination. I must coordinate our defense. Commander Hayes, your delegation should return to your ship immediately. No, Ethan said firmly. If these raiders are targeting our diplomatic mission, we should combine our forces. The UEA vessel Horizon has defensive capabilities that might complement your own. Kira stared at him, clearly torn between her instinct to protect her people alone and the tactical advantage of cooperation. He's right, Drax said softly. This is an opportunity to demonstrate the potential of our alliance. After a moment's hesitation, Kira nodded. Very well. Commander Hayes, come with me to the Defense Center. We'll coordinate from there. In the Defense Center, a cavernous room filled with holographic displays and bustling with Xantari military personnel, Ethan established communication with Captain Reeves aboard the Horizon. We're detecting 3 vessels, definitely Proxima configuration, Reeves reported. They're faster than us, but we have superior shielding and weapons range. Our vessels are the opposite, Kira said, studying the tactical display. Fast and maneuverable, but with limited range and lighter shielding. Ethan saw the opportunity immediately. We can use that. Captain Reeves, if you position the Horizon as a fixed defensive point, the Xantari vessels can use you as a fulcrum for attack runs. Kira's eyes widened slightly. A pincer strategy. It could work. They quickly developed a battle plan, with the Horizon providing covering fire while the more agile Xantari ships executed swift attack runs. As they prepared to implement it, Kira turned to Ethan. You have military training, she said, not a question but a statement. 7 years in the UEA Strategic Command before transferring to diplomatic service, Ethan confirmed. I believe in understanding all aspects of interspecies relations. For the first time, Kira's expression showed something like respect. As do I. Perhaps we are not so different after all. The battle was brief but intense. The combined human Xantari tactics caught the raiders off guard, and within hours, the threat had been neutralized. 2 raider ships were disabled and captured, the 3rd destroyed when it attempted to ram the Horizon. In the aftermath, standing once again in the council chamber, Ethan and Kira presented a united front as they briefed the council on the successful defense. The cooperation between our forces was effective, Kira admitted, her tone neutral but her posture relaxed. The humans' tactical approach complemented our own. Indeed, Drax agreed, looking between them with poorly concealed satisfaction. It seems this bond, unexpected though it was, has already yielded benefits for both our peoples. Later, back in their shared quarters, Ethan found Kira on the balcony, gazing up at the 3 moons of Xantar. You fought well today, she said without turning. For a diplomat. Ethan joined her at the railing, careful to maintain a respectful distance. And you displayed impressive diplomatic skills. For a warrior. A sound emerged from Kira that Ethan hadn't heard before, something between a chirp and a chuckle. Perhaps that is the purpose of the bond, she mused, to bring together different strengths. An interesting theory, Ethan replied. In human history, political marriages were often used to unite different factions or kingdoms. Different strengths, different resources, combined for mutual benefit. This is not a marriage, Kira said quickly, her spines rising slightly. Of course not, Ethan agreed. Just an analogy, a temporary arrangement for the good of both our peoples. They stood in companionable silence for a while, watching the moons trace their paths across the alien sky. 6 months isn't so long, Ethan said eventually. We might even learn to tolerate each other by then. Kira turned to look at him, her expression unreadable in the moonlight. Perhaps, she conceded. Though I make no promises, human. Ethan, he corrected gently. If we're going to be bound by ancient law for 6 months, you might as well use my name." Kira seemed to consider this, then nodded. "Ethan," she repeated, the name sounding exotic in her accent. "And you may call me Kira, when we are not in formal settings." It was a small concession, but Ethan recognized it for the significant gesture it was. "Thank you, Kira." As they stood side by side under the 3 moons of Xantar, an unexpected warrior and an accidental diplomat bound by ancient law, neither could have predicted how this forced alliance would transform not only themselves but the future of their 2 species. The spear that had been caught had set in motion events that would echo across the stars, proving once again that the most profound connections often begin in the most unexpected ways. For now, though, they were simply 2 individuals from different worlds, learning to navigate the strange territory between confrontation and cooperation, between duty and personal choice. And as the night deepened around them, both quietly acknowledged that perhaps this accident of fate might not be the disaster they had initially feared. After all, the greatest journeys often begin with a single misstep, or in this case, a perfectly timed catch.